Welcome to the Dork Forest. Jackie and her pals will never bore us. Shameless confessions
about our obsession
will make us laugh and smile. So let's explore the Dork Forest and dork out for a while.
Hello and welcome to the Dork Forest. I'm Jackie Cation. The websites, JackieCation.com, DorkForest.com, TheDorkForest.com, FamilyPetAncestry.com. They go to most of the same things all over the place. Feel free to review the show on iTunes if you haven't done so already. Thank you so much. If you need to get a hold of me, it's Jackie at JackieCation.com. Let's do the credits. Patrick Brady fixed this audio. Mike Rigberg composed the opening song, sang with his wife, Sarah Cohen. Mike will sing his words to the Mexican hat dance at the end of the program. Vilmos works on the website, JackieCation.com. On the website, JackieCation.com, there's links to this podcast and my comedy podcast with Laurie Kilmartin, The Jackie and Laurie Show. There are links to watch me do stand-up comedy. My calendar is on there where I'm performing. If you want to support the show, there's merch at JackieCation.com if you want a Dork Forest t-shirt, if you want a stand-up t-shirt, if you want stand-up CDs, there is also a DVD. And the CD and DVD, everything's available streaming. The DVD is streaming on comedyfilmnerds.com. All of my CDs are available on Amazon and iTunes and Pandora and Spotify and YouTube if you just want to listen to them before you buy them. If you want to support the Dork Forest, there's a couple of different ways. You may PayPal me a donation. That's right. You could also Venmo me a donation just at my email address. You can support the show in a lot of different ways. You can get merch. You can donate directly. That button is available at JackieCation.com or DorkForest.com, and I appreciate any support that you do. There's premium episodes that you can listen to if you've run through all of the ones that are sort of archived in Blog Talk, and then the almost 500 episodes on Libsyn and iTunes right now, and you need more Dork Forest, you can go to thedorkforest.bandcamp.com. There's probably a dozen live episodes. There's a couple of free things as well, and there's a Storytime album, which is me telling a couple of stories. Everything's like $1 or $2 or free. Let's get into the show. Hey, it's Jackie Cation. I'm in a hotel room in Denver, Colorado, at the High Plains Comedy Festival, and it's a grand opportunity to hang out with comics that I never get to see and do a Dork Forest. Welcome to the Dork Forest, Nato Green.
Hello, Jackie.
I have been wanting to have you on the program for these many years.
Low the years.
The years have gone by.
Well, I'm glad thank you for the festival for giving us this opportunity to get together.
Exactly, right? And I say this, that we should now speak. First of all, it's Nato Green. Nato, like NATO? Were you named after the North Atlantic Treaty Organization?
No.
Okay.
No, my little...
For you are an activist.
My little joke is that
yes.
I come from Lockheed Money. Which is false. NATO is short for Nathaniel.
Okay.
Nathaniel is my government name.
Okay.
So at this point, I only use Nathaniel with money in the law.
Okay.
And it's not like someone said NATO when I was 12 and it stuck, and
it's been fun
ever
since. Ever since,
yeah.
The good times. And it's at Nato Green on Twitter and at Mr. Nato Green on Instagram.
Correct.
But it's mostly just look for Nato Green and you will find stand-up comedy by Nato Green.
Yeah, you sometimes you have to add comedy because if you just search Nato Green,
yeah,
what you find, because Nato Green is a color. Did you know that?
Oh, is
like navy blue, Nato Green.
Oh, like a Pantone or like an actual?
It is the color of NATO uniforms.
Okay.
So I used to do a joke about this, but if you Google me, what you find is a lot of military surplus stores in Belgium. You can get,
right.
NATO Green tents and ponchos and stuff.
Well, who doesn't like army surplus?
Sure.
And you have a new comedy album out that came out a couple of months ago, you said, right?
Correct.
It's the Whiteness Album with the best art. It has a Wonder Bread on the cover, and I think it's awesome.
The Whiteness Album came out earlier this year from Blonde Medicine Records.
Blonde Medicine.
Is the new launched comedy label from Dominic Del Bene, formerly of Rooftop Comedy, formerly of Audible.
Yeah.
Now doing a bunch of...
Now doing his own stuff.
And, I'm actually...
You're pleased with it?
you know how it is for a comic in the range of how happy I ever am about anything, which is not that happy. I am at the higher end of that range. Of being,
the higher end of that range as far as the pride in this particular album. Well, people should listen to it, and then if you have any negative feedback, don't give it to Nato. He doesn't need it. If you enjoyed it, let everyone know. Tell your friends.
Tell people about it.
Tell everyone. So, and then you do a monthly show in San Francisco. If people want to come and see you do stand-up in San Francisco every month.
I have, in fact, 2 monthly shows in San Francisco. One is a pure stand-up show on the second Thursday at the Verdi Club called Verdi Wild Things Are.
Okay.
And the other show is on the last Monday of the month. It's a movie riffing show where we talk over movies at the Alamo Draft House.
Oh, fun.
It's called Riffer's Delight. We really focus on movies that people have nostalgia about that don't hold up.
Oh, that don't hold up.
Like Titanic.
Princess Bride.
Fighting words.
That's what Jake Weissman said the other day on he was on the Dork Forest. He spoke of Cats. A guy who loves cats as much as he does and then disses on the Princess Bride. Gutsy stuff.
That's a bold stance.
It's a bold stance. But let's so those are all the things about Nato Green that you should know. And now let us get into your dorkdom, which is activism.
Yes.
Which is weird because you like to march.
I like to march.
Do you like to march, or you know that you need to march?
Oh, no, I like it.
You like it?
Yeah.
All right. Do you like a call and response kind of situation?
I'm not big on the chanting.
Okay. Yeah. You just like the bodies?
I like the bodies. I like the signs.
The signs.
I like the sociability. Like I like seeing the people there.
Right, that there's support for a thing.
There's a support for a thing. My I have 10-year-old twin daughters.
Okay.
And this is my daughter's impression of me because they go to a lot of marches with me. So my daughter's impression of me is, "Hey Jeff, blah 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 blah." This is what I do at marches. Is I know everybody and people stop to chat with me. So it's just like
it's your church. Essentially,
it's like my church. I go, I catch up with people.
Right. How's it going?
How's it going?
Did you bring pastry?
Yeah. Fuck the system.
Fuck the system. Let's get coffee.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Oh, I've been meaning to catch up with you.
Yeah.
So I love the marching. I do. I'm not big on chanting. There is a time that I like shouting.
Okay.
Which is on picket lines.
Okay. Because you've done a lot of labor protesting.
I've done a lot of. I am the country's only semi-functional hybrid of comedian and union organizer.
Which is so weird since stand-up comedy has no union.
I know.
Yeah. It's got to be a bitter pill. Is it a bitter pill for you?
It's a bitter pill to me that comedians are more like I forget that I change gears. Do you know what I mean? Like sometimes I'll be dealing with some industry person in entertainment and I'll come at them the way that I'm used to dealing with the boss in union stuff, and other comics are like, you can't talk to people that way. You're scaring them.
Yeah.
So,
I have this to say. Good for you.
Thanks.
Frighten the haircuts.
So the love strikes, lots of strikes, a lot of strikes in my life.
Well, that's right.
And
what was did your parents do a lot of?
Yeah, my dad was active in the teachers union when I was a kid. So one of my earliest memories is of when the San Francisco Teachers Union went on strike in 1979.
Okay.
And my dad, was out of school, so I just hung out with him on the picket line.
Right.
And the other teachers were good with kids, played with me on the picket line. So I have fond memories of like barbecuing and playing frisbee with other teachers on the picket line.
Oh, that's
so like teachers union family, and so I got into it, and this is what all union people know, and they cannot say publicly because you are not allowed to say this kind of thing publicly.
Okay,
but it is so fun to scream at scabs.
Okay,
like I, have you ever been in a situation where you would like to shout at someone and then you don't because you're a nice person and there's society involved? Yeah,
we're getting closer to the time when that line is going to be crossed in Jackie Cation's life, when Jackie's just going to start shouting things.
So it's what I think, like picket lines, like you save that up, and then
right.
But then when the scabs cross the picket line,
it's a free for all.
It's a free for all.
Okay.
So like I dig deep. Like
you can say anything.
You can say anything.
Okay.
And so I've been like I spent many years with the nurses union in California, and hospital strikes are no joke. Like hospital strikes are big money. Like they hired I was on one hospital strike where they hired like Blackwater type security people to like shuttle the scabs across the picket line, and so there would be this whole thing of like security details and barricades, and then it'd be me and like a bunch of 55-year-old nurses who are like matronly types, who like are NICU nurses who deal with like preemie babies, so like the most fragile patients possible, just like lined up, and then see the scabs come home, like fuck you, fucking scabs, you were just like
losers,
no one likes you, like the meanest insults. The
you can finally vent.
You can finally vent. It's very satisfying.
And so now this is what my pinned tweet right now is, because I got into it a little bit on Facebook because someone said that they're like, yeah, marches are all well and good, but they don't do anything. They don't affect any real change. Someone said that, and I was like, because I think marches are more. What they do is it's a gathering of people to remind everyone that they're not alone.
Right.
And it's a way to network, and it's a way to meet other people. And then from the march, that's where real change comes from. But the march itself, I mean, it used to be, instead of marches, it was mobs, right?
Yeah.
So one of the greatest tricks of democracy is to turn a mob with a tumbril and a bunch of pitchforks and torches into a march.
Right.
And they're like, no, peacefully march. Do it.
Yeah.
Do it.
I mean, I think there's.
I've said a lot of things. Please speak to any of that.
I have a lot of things to say. I mean, first of all, in social change, it's never one thing. There's and one of the basic principles of doing social change is the oppressor never tells you what you need to know to win.
Oh, right. Why would they? Right.
Right. That there's never a time where the boss is like, if you do this, I'm going to give up. You know what I mean?
Right. So just, we have to kind of, the regular people kind of have to be like monkeys.
And there's
you just throw things at the wall hoping.
And there's a lot now that has been written about this idea that you'll see in major moments of conflict in history, you'll see the outward face of people saying this has no effect, we don't care, and then years later memoirs will come out and say we thought that we were about to be burned at the stake.
Right.
So you sort of have to assume that that's happening.
Okay.
And part of the work of social change, frankly, is intelligence gathering about that kind of stuff. But so they never tell you. It's never one thing,
right?
And
because there's so many different levels of things that you should be doing.
Yeah, if you go into a march thinking we're going to do one march and then we will declare victory and it'll be over, then you're going to be disappointed.
Right. Because then we're going to go home and we're going to play Monopoly,
right,
which is a board game about capitalism, and it was created to teach people that monopolies break economies.
Isn't there I want to say like a good 99% Invisible episode about that?
I don't know. Is that a podcast?
It's a podcast. It's
sure.
a podcast about design.
I just do podcasts. I don't listen.
You don't listen to podcasts.
I'm the worst. So
you're not the worst. You're focused.
I'm very focused on getting mine out, I guess.
So the other thing, like one of a lot of social change, like you don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
Like one of the things that there's the kind of faith that's involved is like sometimes you have a march or you organize a protest and nobody comes and it doesn't accomplish anything.
Okay.
And sometimes you do something and everybody comes and the world changes.
Right.
You know what I mean? On December 15th, 2016, did you have any idea that we were a month and 5 days away from the biggest march in American history?
No.
You know what I mean?
No. Which one was that?
The Women's March.
The Women's March in D.C.?
Well, the National Women's March, the biggest march in America, the biggest single-day mobilization in American history, where something like 1% of the population of the entire United States was out in the streets on that day.
Oh, wow.
Actually, here in Colorado, there's a political scientist named Erica Chenoweth who tracks nonviolent protest movements, who says that since Trump was elected, 20% of the American population has participated in protests.
Wow.
Which is unprecedented level of civic engagement and participation by the American people. And it's like...
20%.
20%. And there's this number that gets bandied about in people who study social change that it only takes 3% of a population to be mobilized in a sustained way at a high level of participation in militants to topple a government.
Oh, wow. So 20%.
20% have done something.
Have at least showed up.
Yeah.
To go, something's not right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No bueno.
No bueno. We'll go to brunch in a minute.
Right. So yeah, and so the biggest march in American history was the Women's March. The biggest march before that in American history was, do you know?
The Civil Rights one?
No. It was the Immigrant Rights March on May 1st, 2006 against the Sensenbrenner. There was a draconian anti-immigrant bill that was introduced in the Republican Congress.
Okay.
That was
in 2006.
In 2006, that was sort of the precursor to that SB 1070 bill that happened in Arizona, and there were these immigrant rights marches all over the country. Immigrants walking out of their jobs.
Okay.
Spanish language radio and the Catholic churches got heavily involved in organizing it. It was like a major moment for the immigrant rights movement.
Wow, they've buried that lead since I don't even remember that, and I was a walking around human in 2006. I was alive.
Yeah. I mean, this is the other thing about. In some ways, I feel like what I end up talking to people about is as much about activism as about hope.
Yeah.
Is like, I think a lot of people's approach to participation is things feel awful and discouraging, and I'm going to wait until it feels possible.
Oh, okay.
Before I go out and participate. I don't want to participate because there's no point. And what I have learned is that, like, there are always heroic people out changing the world and making things better. And that
everywhere, every day.
Everywhere, every day. And
there's someone who's trying to make it better.
And that you never know. I mean, that Rebecca Solnit talks about this. You know, that was Rebecca Solnit, the writer. She wrote a book called Hope in the Dark.
Okay.
And she lives in San Francisco, and she is, among other things, credited as the person who sort of coined the concept of mansplaining.
Well, someone had to say it.
Yeah, actually. Mm-hmm. So she wrote a book called Men Explain Things to Me.
Right.
Can I, very quick, funny aside?
Yeah.
I was in San Francisco, there's a music festival, like in the park.
Right.
And I was there just fortuitously, happened to be sitting next to her. We were chatting. And an older guy came and sat down with his chair and was like on us and our blanket and our bodies. And my wife turned to me and was like, "This motherfucker is manspreading on Rebecca Solnit."
Right.
And so she, like, Rebecca, without interrupting the flow of our conversation, just like kneed him in the back until he moved.
Good for her.
Yeah.
Like, dude, I'm sure not hard, just in a very determined kind of...
Just to make it uncomfortable.
Yeah. You're going to get bumped into a lot until you figure out your space situation.
Right.
Yeah.
So, okay, so the idea of hope is that no one knows their own destiny. That pessimism is and cynicism is a perspective of certitude.
Yeah.
And that the time and time again, the story of social change is that somebody tries something and you never know what's about to erupt. Do you know what I mean? Occupy Wall Street happened September 17th, 2011. That was possibly the third or fourth similar type of attempt that year to have like an occupation that symbolized something about inequality.
Yeah.
The other ones didn't take off. You never sort of know why conditions are going to line up and one thing will take hold and capture people's imagination and erupt. But it did. After George
How many people came to that? I mean, here's the thing about activism is that I know that I've been stuffing envelopes for 40 years, right? And I have been put to work by my sister and to call people and to do these things. And I've done sit-ins and I've waned on it. There's been decades when I haven't done any activism, and except for donated, like $100. And it's something that it can feel hopeless. It can feel like it's not it's not making any difference. But I know you're right. I know that the cynicism is what they want us to believe. It's because it can paralyze you. So, what? Talk to me about first of all, the immigrant bill. What was it in 2006?
So it was essentially, the conversation hasn't progressed that much. It had some partial naturalization path to citizenship combined with a whole lot of increased enforcement and deportation and surveillance.
Okay.
And people didn't want it, and then
it was shot down, and then it was done at a state level,
then it was the. Then as now, the immigrant voices were not part of the negotiations over the bill. It was driven by, mostly by anti-immigrant hysteria, and there was a big immigrant mobilization, particularly among Latinos, to block it successfully. It scattered to the state level subsequently, and there were a bunch of state-based anti-immigrant bills that then were passed, that were litigated. Some got struck down by the Supreme Court, and
some are still in effect.
And and that's also why the DREAM Act became the rallying cry under Obama, that there had been a decision, to back away from the idea of comprehensive immigration reform, is the way they talked about it, bringing all 11 million undocumented immigrants out of the shadows, and just focusing on the so-called dreamers. The DREAM Act failed in the lame duck Senate at the end of 2010 because 6 Democratic senators, including Joe Manchin, voted against it. And I didn't realize this, but just today someone told me or not today, just this week, I learned that the day that the Democratic Senate failed to pass the DREAM Act that had passed the House was the same day that the Senate passed the repeal of Don't Ask, Don't Tell, which to lift the ban on gays in military service.
The military.
And that
was it some sort of deal?
No, it wasn't a deal. It was really. I mean, I mentioned the
Don't Ask, Don't Tell.
To say that in both of them, it indicated where public opinion had moved at that point. That by the time we got to repealing Don't Ask, Don't Tell, 70% of the population was in favor of repeal. Yeah, and so it was an relatively easy lift. That wasn't the case with the DREAM Act. It is now. Like, if you look now, public opinion is, thanks to Trump. I mean, Trump has sort of had this weird. As much as horrible as Trump is and as powerful as he seems, in many ways, if you look at the bigger trends in public opinion, the now super majorities of the American public think that immigrants are a good thing for society.
Right.
The DREAM Act has become the right wing of...
Nato Green, you were giving me hope. You were doing good work here.
That's what I'm here for.
That's what that's what the Dork Forest should do. It's it encourages me, because the thing is I do get depressed. I do get worried, and I fear about, because there's so many dirtbags. But I forget every rock has turned over, and they've crawled out. But that doesn't mean that there's more of them. It just means that the light is on every creep that has ever existed in America. For some reason, they feel that it's okay to pipe up,
right?
And it makes better people better, and marginal people better. People who don't want to get involved. If you look at just grandmas and grandpas who are well, you can't say that about Luis. He's a good guy. And I mean, it's just, it becomes people who traditionally might have looked the other way at bad things will, when faced with actual evil, many of them will rise to the occasion and say, not okay.
Right.
Yeah.
And and to some extent, I feel in my darkest hours,
yeah.
I think I was a history major. I think I read a lot of history. I think a lot about history, and I spend a lot of time thinking about how history will be written 50 years from now.
Sure.
And so, whatever we're living through now will end. And in my darkest hours, what I ask myself is, when we get through this,
right?
Whoever survives,
right.
some of us will survive.
People will survive.
And we look back, do I want to be ashamed about the choices I made?
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, when my kids say to me, "How did you fuck up the world so bad?"
Right.
Do I want to be ashamed about the choices I made?
Right, and say, yes, the world is fucked up, and I did try to fight it, and the whole right side of history as the dumbest reason in the world to do the right thing. Let that be your reason, so that you're on the right side of history. If that's the only reason you can come up with, you know, you don't want to you don't want to go to Nuremberg. You know,
right?
You don't want to be that guy.
Yeah, well, yeah, and I mean, this is like an idea. I have thought about doing this as a bit on stage. I haven't quite figured it out yet, but
well, some of these things are so complicated.
The idea that every issue has the last asshole in history.
What do you mean?
Like somebody had to be the last guy with a no dogs or Irish sign in his window.
Oh, right.
You know what I mean? And his children were like, "Dad, take the sign down. We're like, Kennedy is president now."
Right.
You know
right.
What I mean? Like,
if we could please. Yeah.
And so, like, you know, these people who've come out from under the rocks, the extreme, you know, emboldened, you know, reactionary, racist, misogynistic, xenophobic, you know, at like this core support for Trump is maybe 18% of the population.
Right.
So, you know, this is what we're witnessing is, I am convinced, the death rattle of an old order. And it can do a lot of damage on the way out.
Right.
But, you know.
And we will have to recover from it. But,
absolutely.
But at least.
It's not like Reagan, where, you know, in the 80s there was like landslide public support for that agenda.
For that agenda, and he just destroyed entire institutions and crippled generations. It might take us 15 years to, you know, sort of come back from this, but it's and I've said this since Trump went in, is that I'm a big fan of, you can have all the money, take all the money, go off into the world, take it all, but just seriously fuck off. Mm-hmm. And because we will rebuild when you are gone.
Right. But just
try to, you know, if we could just try not to get things passed, you know, that we will then have to repeal. And so there's marching. There's activism. Well, actually, let's talk about the union thing.
Yeah.
So because wasn't your day job was that of a union activist, wasn't it?
Yeah. So like a lot of, I started out, I was something called a salter.
SALT.
SALT.
Okay.
Which is someone who gets non-union jobs in order to organize them.
Okay.
So when I was...
you know what? I see that, Nato. Uh-huh. You enjoy a button, and you will push it.
Yeah, and you know, for whatever reason, I'm someone who's completely comfortable with conflict and confrontation.
Right.
Like, complete resting heart rate while everyone else is screaming.
Exactly. That is, yes. Those guys, you got to go out and see Nato, because it's you'll see him and go, oh, I could see that. Yeah.
I got, you know, when I was 22 or something, I got a job at Noah's Bagels and organized a union there.
Okay.
And then I got a job as a car messenger and spent several years as a car messenger and organized a union of biking car messengers.
Okay.
And we joined the Longshoremen. So I was for a time a card-carrying member of the Longshoremen's Union.
Okay.
We had, as biking car messengers, we had 20 strikes in a year and a half.
Okay.
Because the nature of the work is like everything has to be moved in an hour.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's like, oh, you fired that guy? Our radios are off until he comes back. And then an hour and a half later.
Right. Everybody.
The guy's back. You know?
Yeah. Yeah.
And then I raised a bunch of foundation money and started the country's first worker center for young and immigrant workers in the low-wage service sector.
What does that mean? What are the words that they are words I do not know.
So there is a... So
you started the foundation.
I raised foundation money.
Okay.
To start an organization.
Okay.
That's called a worker center.
Worker center.
Yeah. So there's a lot... There are unions... And in the United States, unions are defined by collective bargaining. Unions negotiate union contracts.
Okay.
So the Teamsters have a contract with UPS. The Writers Guild has a contract with the consortium of TV and movie studios.
Right.
You the nurses union has contracts with hospitals. Unions it's all about the contract.
Okay.
As you know, there are lots of people who have jobs where they have problems and they might want to do something about the conditions of their job.
Yeah.
But maybe the existing unions don't quite fit what they do.
Okay.
And so.
And you don't want to go to HR.
Right, you don't want to go to HR. And so there was this explosion of these sort of independent workers organizations that got a lot of foundation support.
Okay.
That
would then do bargaining for these weirdo jobs?
Yeah,
or
bargaining or advocacy or protests. Like a lot of them did.
It was someone to go to.
Yeah, it was someone to go to. So like a lot of worker centers did stuff around wage and hour compliance. So like for me, working with particularly restaurant workers.
Okay.
The restaurant industry is a lawless industry. So
Yeah.
it's not even, we're not even talking about union contracts. We're talking about minimum wage and overtime.
Yeah.
And legal rest breaks. And having your boss not steal your tips.
Yeah.
And so just getting these restaurants to comply with the existing law was a win.
Yeah.
And so that's what we did. We brought wage and hour claims.
Nice.
We had protests. We did media work. We did legislative advocacy. So we, in 2003, sponsored the first citywide minimum wage initiative in the city of San Francisco. We sponsored a citywide paid 6 days law that took effect. Helped win millions of dollars in back wages for low-wage and immigrant workers and young workers in restaurants in San Francisco. One time, I would represent workers in hearings in front of the California Labor Commissioner, and the restaurant bosses would come in and say, with their lawyers.
Yeah.
And I had a lawyer once get in my face and say, are you a lawyer, Mr. Green? And I said, no. And he said, it must be nice to. I said, but I like having mail addressed to Nato Green Esquire anyway. And he said, it must be nice to use the title without going to school to earn it. And I said, well, I also put Reverend on my plane tickets.
Which is a classic, just baiting.
Yeah.
It's just, that's fun for you.
Right.
You're like, you're not going to shame me into not advocating for these people who have no rights.
Yeah, well, and then I was like, and you may be a lawyer, but I'm still going to beat you.
Yeah.
This is one of my other, remember the old adage, a great Nato Green principle about social change.
Yes.
Do not make threats you can't deliver on.
Oh, fair enough.
Which is to say, always make threats that you can deliver on is the corollary.
Fair enough. It's I think somebody I had a situation in the I know my brother was he is a teacher. He is an econ professor at the University of Wisconsin Whitewater, and one of his students was raped on campus, but she then dropped out of school and came to him and said, I've dropped out of school. I got to go get some help. And he said, and did you tell the police about this? And she said, I told the campus cop, but he said because it didn't happen on campus and I just dropped out, that he can't do anything about it. And my brother said, oh, pardon me. And he went and he talked to that cop and he said, you're going to fix this. And the campus cop said, well, she's not in school anymore. It's no longer my jurisdiction. And Russ Cation actually said to him, is this how you wanted your career to end? And and Russ goes, I'm not. It's actually not a threat. That's actually a promise, because it will come out, and I don't even have to do it. He's like, you will go to the city police. You will figure out what the hell has happened, and you will bring this guy to justice, because this is not. This doesn't happen today. Not here. Not right now. And I was like, oh my God, you're a damn hero.
Yeah, well, I mean, just again, for me, like sort of my temperament.
Yeah.
There have been times in my I've sort of gone back and forth between doing comedy full time and doing activism full time.
Yeah.
And on some level, I don't really care which one pays me. I just accepted that I need to do both.
Okay.
Because when I don't do activism, I become annoying. Because if you have my skill set and my impulses, and I don't have like a real project to pay attention to, then I'm just like picking fights with strangers on the street.
Okay.
Right.
And if you don't do stand up?
And if I don't do stand, well, yeah, I mean, there was there was one time I had a long spell the longest spell in 10 years of not doing stand up, which was not that long. It was like 5 weeks.
Okay.
And we were at my parents' house in Cape Cod, Massachusetts, and my wife was like, "You're annoying me. You need to find an open mic somewhere."
Because you're just riffing.
Yeah.
It's when I don't do stand-up for a long time, I turn into my dad a little bit, and every waitress, every concierge person, I'm just trying to make them laugh.
Just doing bits.
Very bad. It is not okay. People are at work. Leave them alone.
And so then we're in Cape Cod. I found a Best of Boston showcase 45 minutes away in the basement of a DoubleTree in Hyannis. I drove out there, talked my way onto the show.
Okay. Got to do a set.
Bled
off some of that need.
Yeah. And there wasn't even, it was like, okay, well, this is just, this is just like this is a thing that I know about myself.
Yes.
I am a person who is going to have to go talking to microphones.
Right.
To strangers.
Yes.
Or I'll feel crazy.
Or you'll feel crazy. Fair enough.
So there you have it.
My ad. I'm about to do an ad. Hey guys, it's Jackie. And today's ad is for vitamins at takecareof.com. There is this online quiz that you take at takecareof.com that will tell you what kind of vitamins and supplements you can take. It asks you about your diet, your health goals, your lifestyle choices. It takes 5 minutes and you find out what vitamins and supplements you specifically need. It's a monthly subscription, right? So your vitamins get delivered right to your door in personalized, easy-to-remember daily packs. It puts honesty first, providing all of the research that supports each of the recommendations, backed by a scientific advisory board, and a portion of every sale goes towards the Good Plus Foundation, which provides expectant mothers in need with valuable prenatal vitamins. There's vegan and vegetarian supplement options. Here's the deal for Rangers. For 25% off your first month of personalized care of vitamins, you visit takecareof.com and enter the code DORK. Always remember, not a lot of people live by a code. But here, in the Dork Forest, you can live by a code. Let's get back into the show.
Did the young worker stuff. Went to work for the nurses for several years.
Okay.
The nurses union, big and powerful union in California.
Yeah.
Had a bunch of years of learned a lot. Great work doing that. Stopped and did comedy full time for several years.
Okay.
Among other things, including going to New York to write on Totally Biased.
Okay.
Kamau Bell's first show.
That first show on FX that then they moved to FXX, so it was like a death knell.
Yeah.
You're like, what? Because it was such a good show. It was a really good show.
They moved to FXX and to 5 nights a week at the same time.
Oh, right.
And
essentially quadrupled your workload and moved it deeper into cable.
Yeah. So, and then for the last several years, my last mission or whatever, I was consulting for SEIU, just doing collective bargaining. So they would bring me in to negotiate.
What's SEIU?
SEIU is the Service Employees International Union. It's one of the biggest unions in the country. The branch of it that I have a relationship with, and will expect to work with again, is a large public sector, local government in Northern California. So cities, counties, some transit agencies, people who aren't teachers at public schools and community colleges, like school janitors, for example, and like cafeteria workers, that kind of thing. Libraries, and then some private sector stuff. Like the last thing that I did was SEIU has been doing a whole national program to organize adjunct college professors. Okay. And so we organized 1,700 adjuncts at 7 private colleges in the Bay Area, and then I helped coordinate negotiating all those contracts. So the first contracts for the adjunct professors.
Okay. What's the definition of an adjunct professor?
An adjunct professor, as opposed to a tenured track or full-time professor, these are professors who are hired and paid per semester per class. So instead of having a job, they'll be like, we want you to teach one section of English 101, and we're going to pay you $3,000 for the semester.
Right. Okay. That's what Andy does, my husband.
Oh, yeah?
He teaches game design at New York Film Academy. And he's also teaching some sort of narrative, and it's per class. He gets paid per class, and he had to negotiate that contract himself because it's contract work.
Right, and so there's pretty like there's been stories about like adjuncts, like dying in their cars, and like
because they're not making the right money.
They don't make enough
Luckily,
money.
He has other work,
right?
And so he doesn't have to live.
He has
off
the
of
Jackie
this.
Cation gravy train to keep him
right.
afloat.
Exactly. He doesn't want to get in on this High Plains Denver money.
I know.
So.
Denver's gobbling up the Dork Forest stickers.
Exactly.
I'm sure.
There's stickers. I sold a lot of merch in Fort Collins the other night, actually. So good for me. I saved you a Meat Shield shirt, though.
Thank you.
I'm
going to wear it.
Okay.
It's been in the last 30 years, there's been this shift in higher education. And 30 years ago, like 70% of teaching was like full-time, tenure track professors.
Right.
And the ratio is flipped. So now, like most of college instruction in the United States is taught by
this contract business,
part-time,
adjunct,
contingent, no job security, no benefits, no pension plan,
right?
Paid by class. People don't know from one semester to the next whether they still have a job,
right?
And
every semester, Andy's like, "Oh, he wants me to teach again. Oh, he doesn't need me to teach that one again." And I'm like, is that how this goes? And he's like, and he does it because he gets to talk about games 9 hours a week with youth. He gets to talk to the youth about board games and video games and game design. So it's fun for him. And then there is some money. So.
Right. I mean, there are people, there's some amount of people who do adjunct work who have another gig,
right?
And they do it like as a way to stay connected to the youth and whatnot,
right?
Or to, there's a bunch of people who I got a PhD in history, and I thought I was going to be a historian, but there are no full-time history jobs, so I'm adjuncting.
So they have to adjunct, and they need that job as a job, and those people don't. There's no one to advocate except for these kinds of organizations,
right? And so, in the last 4 years nationally, we've organized 50,000 adjuncts at probably 60 colleges.
And it has to be done, is it piecework? It has to be done one at a time? Or do you do it per private college?
We go one college after another.
One college after another. Just sort of, let's look at these pile of people.
Yep.
And let's look at their organization and how bad they're screwing them. And let's try to organize.
Yeah.
Wow.
And it's the downside of working with adjuncts compared to other types of unions is that because they are intellectuals, they have this incredibly naive belief that having the best argument matters in this world.
Right. Right.
If only I can write another paper to explain why we deserve dignity and justice in our lives.
Right. If that would have worked, I'm sorry, that would have worked back in the 1700s as well.
So, but
this country was founded by a bunch of those nerds who were just like, we're going to write the best paper and King George is going to believe us.
Yeah. And I'm always telling them, why say in one page what you can say in five? So
right. They're windy. They're a windy folk.
They're windy. So fortunately, my wife is an academic, and so I sort of speak their language enough, and I've read enough. I can pass. You know what I mean?
Right. Well, you could have done it. I mean,
could have done it.
That's the thing. I meet so many people who are like, "Well, I don't do that," but you're like, I bet you could have, though.
Yeah.
I bet you could have been a professor easily. It would have been.
My grandparents would have been so much happier with me.
So proud.
They're like, why can't you be a labor historian or labor economist or labor law professor?
That'd be awesome.
Why do you have to be the guy getting screamed at on picket lines?
Exactly. You're like, well, Dad shouldn't have taken me to the strike. Who doesn't love a barbecue?
But we like a lot of that stuff. It's still step by step. But in some of these adjunct contracts, at the high end, the best contract we negotiated, we got those workers a 60% raise.
Okay.
So that's not nothing.
That is not nothing. Now, talk to me about the nuts and bolts of that. Is that let's say you go to a privately run DeVry-like kind of situation, right?
Yeah, mostly it's DeVry is for profit, so I believe. So mostly it's nonprofit colleges.
Okay.
So,
is it easier to work with nonprofit colleges than profit colleges?
Yeah. Yes. I mean, interestingly, the schools that we found were the easiest to deal with tended to be the Catholic colleges because Like, they usually have a bunch of Catholic social justice mumbo jumbo in their mission statement.
Right. So then they have to rise to the occasion.
And so then, like, and they have clergy on the faculty.
Okay.
And so, when I negotiate a union contract, I have a bargaining team that is elected from the membership who sits at the table with me.
Okay.
That's how most union negotiations work, is there's a member-based bargaining team along with, like, a lead negotiator person like me.
Okay, so you come in from outside, but everybody else on that team is local.
Right.
Okay.
And so it's the idea that you have a marriage of the people who have in-depth knowledge of the needs and conditions of that situation,
right,
and the person like me with the technical knowledge about
who can put it all in a binder, and go, here's your talking points, here's the things you have to get from these people. I know that you would also, you're willing to settle for certain things, but you shouldn't be, because you should get these 4 things for sure, and that type of thing. Okay.
Yeah, so like a lot of times, and this is the part that one of the things I love about negotiations is, like, I could get dropped in with a group of workers, blind, knowing nothing about the situation, and just I get to listen to people complain about their job for 2 hours, and then be like, okay,
where's that podcast?
How do we turn this into a plan?
Right.
And then I say something like,
God.
Okay, why don't we make a plan and then implement it? And people are like, why didn't anyone suggest that before?
Right. No, we were just going to bitch about it for 25 years and then retire.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I understand. No, that's it exactly. Is like, you're sitting there, you're the outside person who comes in and listens to them bitch while you take notes. You're like, okay, that's a real thing that we could address. What else? Oh, I can't stop Marilyn from stealing your lime Yoplait. No, that is not to be addressed.
Well, I mean, what I tell people is, you don't have a right to have a boss who's not an asshole.
Okay,
you know what I mean?
Fair enough.
That your boss can hate you.
Yeah.
They just can't do things to you.
Right? They can't do. I had a friend who gave me some amazing advice probably 15 years ago. 2 things she said that are still with me. She was like, when you make a mistake, apologize in the moment. And if you don't apologize in the moment, go back, find the guy who was essentially packing my groceries that I whipped a bell pepper at. Find that young man and apologize to him, because that is not okay. You are a child and you're in the wrong. Please correct your wrongs as you go. And what that made me do is it made me never whip another bell pepper at another person, because I didn't want to apologize. She's like, it will create a restraint of pen and tongue in the moment if you have to apologize. So that was the first advice. The second advice, God dang it, I forgot what we were talking about. What were we talking about? Work. Bosses. So I was complaining about my last day job. Or some day job I had. And she literally...
Which was in the 1840s.
Which was back in the 1840s. And she drew a map. And it was essentially just a grid like this, right? And she wrote the word boss on the top. And then she drew a line to me, employee. And she said, okay, so this is the boss. The boss writes you a check to do a certain amount of work. Is your boss asking you to do something that is not in your job description? And I said, no. And she said, and is your boss rude to you when she asks you to do it? Is she being exceptionally mean? I was like, just sort of, not entirely. And she's like, okay, are you being paid to do the thing she's asking you to do? And I said, yes. And she was like, well, you don't have a leg to stand on then, is what she said. She said, just do, unless she was asking you to do something that's outside of your job, or that is dangerous or not good for you, or if she was doing it in an abusive fashion, those are the 3 things that you could say, no, I don't want to do that. If you don't want to do the job, that's you not wanting to do the thing you're being paid for. And that's a different problem.
Right.
And I was like, I don't even know how we got on those 2 topics. And that was over the course of me knowing, this is a longtime friend of mine. So now, is that a real...
Yeah, I mean, well, the other thing I would say is if you're not getting paid enough to do the job description, then you need to organize a union and get paid more.
Oh, right. Well, right. I mean, the thing is if I don't want to do the job that I'm being paid for, what amount of money would make me want to do that job? and then ask for that amount of money. That's actually one of the things my father consistently says. Never say no without a number.
I think that's you said that to me not that long ago, and
he is not wrong.
I apply it. I apply that lesson. The thing that part of what I love about union negotiations specifically is that is the complexity that you have to think about. Like, I have my bargaining team of some. I've had worked with bargaining teams that are from between 3 people and 40 people.
Oh, really?
And of the
so
members,
40 people walk into a conference room?
Yeah.
Wow.
Who are my members that I have to figure out how to corral.
Okay.
And so there's the part of it that is thinking about the contract. Like, what are the problems that people have? How do those problems get solved in negotiations? Are there ways to modify the proposal to get past the obstacles to reach an agreement? So there's like the technical aspects of like, how do we solve these problems?
Okay.
Then there's also the big picture of the power relationships, like that, the relationship between the boss and the workers. How much are each side afraid of each other? How much leverage do we have to get what we want if things get stuck, right?
Wow.
And then at the same time, there's also the group dynamics. There's the group dynamic on my side of the table. There's a group dynamic on the other side of the table. There's everybody in the room together.
Yeah.
I'm a comic. That's how I manage the group dynamic.
Right. You get laughs.
I get laughs.
You work the room as an audience.
Including the other side.
Yeah.
And so it's not uncommon for me to have people on the other side of the table being like, "Don't laugh at him,"
Oh my God,
to their other people.
Right? Don't. Right. It's just a sign of weakness if he can make you laugh.
So like I'm like fully engaged intellectually because I have to think about all those things at the same time.
Right.
And the power stuff is like, in some ways, if sometimes it's hard to get an agreement because the things that people want are just like incompatible in some clear way.
Okay.
Sometimes it's hard to get an agreement because people hate each other. It's not about the issues. It's just about the
personalities.
Yeah, the relationship. The managers have been abusive. They hate the workers. The workers hate the managers. There's no trust in the room.
Okay.
And so it's like people hate each other too much to be able to actually resolve the issues that they have.
Right.
And it's not about the issues. It's about revenge or whatever.
Yeah. How do you deal with that? I mean, when the personalities are so high.
I am a big believer in the idea that the best cure for the ills of democracy is more democracy, and that as a union, our absolute obligation and our power comes from the membership. Mm-hmm. I'm in the room with the bargaining team who's elected to represent the membership. When in doubt, go back to the membership. So if things get stuck, if people can't reach agreement, if we don't know what to do,
if you have a dozen people and you get stuck, like logged up, you take it to the larger group,
right? Go out
to unplug it.
Yeah, go out to the work sites, have membership meetings. I need to hear from the members because, like, the people at the table get this, and part of what I end up doing in terms of is early on preparing people for the emotional journey of negotiations. Like, you're going to come in, you're going to want this stuff. You are going to be super aware at every point of everything that you tried to get that you didn't get.
Okay. And
it always happens that, we don't realize until afterwards how much we actually did get.
Okay.
And so things...
Because you're hyper aware of what you didn't get, because everyone's always hyper aware of what they didn't get.
Like, we proposed this, and we got some lesser thing, and we're upset that we didn't get the thing that we really wanted, and we don't realize how much the lesser thing is actually going to matter to our members.
Right.
And then we go out and take it to the members, and the members are like, what are you talking about? This is great.
Right. Right.
And so, like, there's a point that comes where I tell my bargaining team, I'll say, get ready. We are about to reach the part of the negotiations where we all yell at each other. You're going to get upset, and we're going to yell at each other, and it's going to be okay.
It'll be fine.
The part where you have to make decisions about when to settle. Because what I tell the bargaining team, it's not my decision to settle. My members, the members have to decide.
Okay.
Because I'm going to walk away.
Yeah. You have to go to the next thing.
I have to go to the next thing. You all have to live with it.
Yeah.
So you have to decide when we're done.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's very intense, it's very emotional, and there's what people go through at the moment of deciding to settle is incredible. It's like I can illustrate this with a story.
Please.
Several years ago, I negotiated the contract for the nurses who worked at San Francisco General Hospital. So, or public sector nurses. There were about 2,000, 2,500 members, maybe 20 people on the negotiating team.
Okay.
And at the very end of negotiations, what was left on the table was management had proposed a few takeaways of cuts that were targeted at specific groups of workers.
Okay.
And we had a few achievements that we hadn't won yet.
Okay.
And the takeaways were targeted the highest paid of the nurses. Okay. Including my wife. My wife is a nurse practitioner who works for San Francisco Department of Public Health.
Okay.
And so she was like, motherfucker, you better get back in there and fix this. You know what I mean? You are on commission right now.
You will not be losing our, I don't know, whatever it is.
Right. But, you know, so it's like, we've been in round-the-clock negotiations for 4 days. Nobody slept. It's, on the 11th hour, it's a decision about what, there's a moment about what are we holding out for, right? Are we holding out for the things that we wanted to win that we haven't won? Are we holding out to stop the cuts that we don't like?
Right.
Or both, right?
Yep.
And we went around the room and unanimously, everybody got to talk, and every member in the room said, in my heart of hearts, what matters is that no one gets left behind.
Okay.
It's not about everybody getting as much as they could get.
Yeah.
It's about nobody gets left behind.
Okay.
And the nurse practitioners, who were the highest paid people, who were the ones who were affected by that, they were not the majority. If it had gone to a vote, they would have lost. Right. Just on that issue, it was about everybody else in the room taking a principled position. We are a union. No one gets left behind. That's the principle.
Nobody gets left behind, and if the highest end has to take a small cut so that the lowest end gets a benefit, and it sort of evens out.
Well,
is that what it was?
No, it's nobody gets left behind. So like that, these people were going to get like everybody else was going to get something. Is these people
except
were going to
take
except for the highest people? These people were going to take a cut.
Okay.
And so they said, we're not letting anyone get. The principle was, we're not letting the highest paid people get picked on this time because we know that it means that next time it's us.
Yes.
Next time it's everybody else.
Okay. If what they're doing is they're testing the water.
Yeah.
They're like, are you willing to throw Marie Antoinette under the bus because next time it's going to be the rest of you. It's going to be the bourgeoisie. Interesting.
And people were crying, and it was emotionally
they were
intense.
upset,
but everybody came together, and we got what we needed to get out of that agreement.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And people came to felt like it was one of the most successful negotiations they've been through in a long time.
So that 4 days, no sleep.
Yeah.
So where are you? Are you you're meeting together with your team, their team in one room for hours on end?
We were in that case we were at a union hall where we were in there was we had one conference room and the boss had another conference room, and then we would come in and meet together.
Right.
In a common room with everybody together.
Okay, so you would both go and just sort of huddle with your people, discuss, and then regroup and talk about what you were and were not willing to do.
Right.
Okay, and that would last 4 days nonstop.
Yeah, frequently at the very end, it can go at the end. You don't want to you can't maintain that.
Yeah.
But at the end of negotiations, when you think a deal is in sight, you can push it.
Okay, because nobody wants to leave.
Well,
you're just like, let's just finish this.
It also with this is the sort of art and not the science of negotiations. But sometimes there's a window to get a deal.
Okay.
And if you blow the window, then it's hard to get back to it.
Okay. Right. So you have the momentum.
It's like if I feel like there's momentum to get a deal,
nobody leave.
Yeah, I mean in 1997 there was a Bart strike in San Francisco. Bart is the big transit agency.
Okay.
And it was like 5 days into the Bart strike. Then Mayor Willie Brown called the head of Bart and the union into his office and basically said, "I'm locking the doors. Nobody leaves until there's a deal. The deal's done."
Okay.
Like that. There is some value. I mean, this is when I talk about managing the group dynamics.
Yeah.
In making everyone miserable at the end. Everybody needs to physically feel the discomfort of not reaching agreement.
Right, right.
Like people need to be tired, hungry, cranky, have to go to the bathroom.
Right.
Like,
is this bottom?
Right.
Right. What are you willing? What are you willing to do?
Right. Are we really going to drag this out over 1% more?
Yeah.
Right? What is this about?
Yes.
You know what I mean? And this is what I mean. Is like for it's my favorite part of negotiations because you get it tests people's mettle. People find out what kind of leaders they are.
Okay.
Because some people are like, I'm going to fight until the end. And to some extent, the people who say that they want to keep fighting, sometimes there are people who are like, I want to keep fighting, and our members are willing to keep fighting.
Okay,
that's great. If as long as the members are willing to keep fighting, I want to keep fighting.
Yeah,
I'm never going to stop the members from picking a fight.
Right.
But if the members are
done,
if you feel like the members are done, and then there's the 12th angry man on the negotiating team who doesn't want to be done.
Right.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. What's on it? Why?
Right.
What's his agenda? What's her agenda? Why are they still fighting? What are they fighting?
Yeah, and a lot of times it's like it's not about. I mean, it's that for the people who decide, okay, this is enough. That moment of like, and now I'm ready to go out and explain to the members. We didn't get everything we wanted. We did our best. Here's why we decided that this was,
this should be enough.
Yeah,
at this point.
And then if
the members come back and say no, keep going.
Well, so So when there's a union contract, procedurally the members have to vote to ratify it.
Right.
And so the members, so
it goes to them anyway.
Yeah. So the full membership has an opportunity to vote. They could vote down an agreement and say we reject this contract. The way that I do it, which is somewhat controversial, is when I put the vote out, it is ratify or strike.
Okay.
Because I want to be able to say to the boss, I can either deliver you a deal or I can deliver you a strike, and you get to pick.
You get to pick. Right. Because if you keep going back and forth, the boss thinks there's more wiggle room.
Right.
And if you keep going back and forth, the people think there's
right.
There could be fiddle and diddle.
Yeah, and if people vote down a contract but then aren't willing to do anything, it's like then the boss is like, well, you in what army?
Yeah.
So,
that's fascinating. Wow. Okay, we are very close to an hour.
Okay.
Let me find out what... First of all, everyone should remember that I am speaking here in the Dork Forest with Nato Green. At Nato Green, Nato Green, Green. Mr. Nato Green on Instagram. New album, the Whiteness Album, and 2 monthly shows. One a movie riffing thing, and you can find it all on your Instagram and Twitter.
It's all online.
It's all online. You'll find it.
I have an oeuvre.
You have an oeuvre, and what's next? That's stand up, right? You're working stand up. You're doing your thing. What do you want out of activism right now? Like what's the next fun thing that you see coming for you? I don't know why this is a question. It feels like something that they would ask on a show, though. And this is a show. So why wouldn't I ask it?
So are you aware of the Janus decision?
No.
Okay.
Not offhand.
Earlier in June, the Supreme Court, the stolen Supreme Court, issued a ruling in a case called Janus.
Okay.
That was there has been a long-term concerted effort by the right wing to destroy the labor movement.
Okay.
By creating open shop, right?
Okay.
So saying that public sector unions don't have to, that people don't have to pay dues to be in a union.
Okay.
And it was, that you ask yourself, why would, billionaires spend a lot of money and a lot of years trying to defund the labor movement?
Right.
It's not hard to figure out.
Right.
It's not about the issue of...
It's the words defund the labor union.
Right.
Yeah.
So, actually, as people talk about it, I find myself thinking about that joke on your album about the Scott Walker joke.
Oh, the old Scott Walker joke. Yeah. He wants, with the teachers, he wants to... guns in the classroom, but...
no pensions.
No pensions.
Yeah.
Terrible idea. Terrible idea.
So... So the Janus decision came out, and it is generally perceived as an existential threat to the labor movement.
Right.
And what's happening is the next step is that they're actually sending out organizers. There are these right-wing foundations called the Freedom Foundation that are sending organizers all over the country
to go tell people to not join the union.
Go tell union members to stop paying their union dues.
Right.
And I want to be in that fight.
Okay.
I love it.
Yeah. It sounds terrifying to me. But you, heartbeat steady as a rock over there.
It's the kind of thing where everybody's freaked out.
Yeah.
People are worried that we're going to lose everything. I want to be in the mix, man.
Yeah. At least you're going to be part of the solution.
Yeah.
And, whatever happens.
Because here's the thing is I've been involved in the labor movement for over 20 years now, and the labor movement has been shrinking in membership that entire time.
Right.
I feel like the labor movement has not been everything it should be or could be.
Mm-hmm.
I am both a committed trade unionist and intensely critical of the practice of some unions.
Sure.
And
the thing is everything is ripe for corruption.
Right.
You can use any tool poorly, and you can use any tool. You can be bad with it. It doesn't mean that the tool is wrong, and that I know that is the argument of gun control people. That the gun is just a tool, which it is. It is a tool. That doesn't mean it also doesn't need to be legislated. I'm talking about the labor unions.
So yeah, and it's like, when there's this kind of moment of crisis, and particularly people are attacking the union from the outside, and they're sending organizers to go to our members, the idea of being able to go out to union members, that kind of attack forces conversations that don't happen otherwise about
right.
What are we about? What are we doing here?
Right.
What is this for?
What is this for is the conversation that people do need to have, because then they'll realize what the money is for.
Yeah, and what the conversation I always want to have with union members is it's not about did we win your personal grievance? It's not about this contract settlement. This whole thing is about power.
Yeah.
Let's stay laser focused on what you are, a working person in America with the worst inequality in 100 years. What power do you have in society? What are you going to do about it?
Right.
So
that's
the next thing for me.
That's awesome. Nato, this has been fascinating. Thank you for telling. I need to be talked through a lot of this stuff because I don't always get it, and I gloss over some of the details. And you're doing vital work with your stand-up comedy and with this activism.
Thank you very much.
And I learned stuff. So thanks for being on the show.
Thank you. My pleasure.
And Rangers, you know the rules out there. Take care of each other.
My hat, my hat, my hat. They're dancing around my hat, my hat, my hat, my hat. Well, what do you think of that? If it looks like a Mexican hat dance and it sounds like a Mexican hat dance, it's most likely a Mexican hat dance. So take off your hat and let's dance.
Yay! Oh my God. Why don't we just call that as the end of the show?